Today we are going to discuss biographical and expository sermon. But before we move on, if today is your first time of watching my channel, my name is Alaba Oladejo. I will be opening your understanding to the knowledge needed for your career, spiritual, and personal growth. Therefore, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also share with others so that they can also benefit. Now, let's move on to our discussion. How to prepare an outline to a biographical and expository sermon. Biographical sermon. Biographical. As the name simply denotes, biographical, when you are telling the story of another person, when you are telling the story about the life of a particular character, you want to teach people lessons from that person's life. You want to tell people what to do or what not to do in relation to how that person lives. And this kind of sermon somehow is tricky and somehow difficult because there may not be a particular text for that sermon. You may not have anywhere to pick their text. That's why it is somehow tricky and it may be bucky at times. When you want to discuss about somebody's life, you must know how to sit down, choose that person's life, understand his lifestyle, and then summarize his life. After that, you are not going to bring out the lesson from it. Not that you are going to write everything about his life, how he lives. No, people need the summary, points, cogent points. You are going to bring them out of his life. It is also divided into head, but one thing about biographical sermon is its heads can be in form of topical sermon or textual sermon. If you can pick your text from a passage, or where if you see somewhere to pick your text from his life history, and that topic can come in form of a textual sermon or topical sermon. If it involves a faith, it is a textual sermon. If it doesn't involve a faith, it is a topical sermon. It doesn't matter in a biographical sermon. However you see it, like when you want to tell us about the life of Noah, you know, the Bible mentions something that a righteous preacher, when you take that Genesis chapter 6, Noah is the only righteous person there. Now, you can now bring a righteous preacher as a topic. You know, a righteous preacher is a topical sermon. Let's say you want to talk about Solomon, King Solomon. When you take that Ecclesiastes chapter 12, he says the word of the wise. You can say the word of the wise. Somebody choose a topic someday, he said, into the mind of Solomon. Into the mind of Solomon. This is another form it can come into the mind of Solomon. That is, you are going somewhere. The life of a wise preacher. All those ones can be the topic of your biographical sermon. After that, you go to the text. You know, I said there may not be a particular text for it, just like topical and textual sermon. That means you can bring the text of your biographical sermon from a old passage. Probably you want to tell us about Noah. You can say the text can be Genesis chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, or you just say 6 to 9. You want to tell us about his life. Or you know the topic I pick is in chapter 6. You may not include that one. We just include that particular phase. After that one, you will now go to the purpose. Probably we said to show why we should be righteous. That's the point under purpose. Now, you will now go to the introduction. What happens when God commanded him to build an ark? After your introduction, you now go to the body of your sermon. Who was Noah? How did he live? How old is he? What are his achievements? When did God commanded him to build an ark? When did he finish the ark? Why did he live how he lived? Why did he survive? How did he become righteous? Those are the points under the body. Mind you, you will put those things, those words, there must be points under them too. When you can read the whole passage, you make sure you understand and bring out points out of it. Then you go to conclusion. I said your conclusion also must reference your purpose to show why we should be righteous. Beloved, do we now see why we should be righteous? Then you can have your application. Yes, you can have it, your application under your conclusion. That is, when somebody goes to somewhere, when he's sinned, something happened to them, and they now call his brother, and everybody knows his brother as a good person. Now, because of this brother's behavior, they permit that person, they grant him his sin. You will now reference that about biographical sermon too. Now, let's move to the last kind of sermon, which is expository sermon. Expository sermon. That is the last part of the sermon that we have. Expository sermon. From the word expose, when you show in detail the meaning of something, when you show us in full what happened at a particular time or moment. This expository sermon is the most difficult. I must tell you the facts. And if you can develop it, writing a book won't be a problem to you, because it entails a lot of knowledge, and you must have a good sense of understanding. You must understand background message of things. You must understand different language, cultures, values, behaviors, customs, so that you will be able to expose what you want to expose very well. It may mean a book. Probably you want to expose a book, or it is a passage you want to expose, or you even want to expose somebody's character. Not that you are going to treat that person with contempt. You may see something different from what is written. What is written may be that that person takes something. When you want to expose, it will be like you and that person listening together. You are going to tell us what makes that person to behave in that way. Probably something is happening to him or his own manner or culture. That is when exposing makes sense. Like when something happened between Christ and his mother. John chapter 2, when the mother of Jesus met him to assist them because the wine has finished. Jesus just replied his mother, "Mother, what do you have to do with me? For my time has not come yet." Many people will think that kind of statement is disgusting, is disgrace. For somebody to reply his mother like that, why should Christ answer his mother and just tell him, "Mother, what do you have to do with me?" When critics want to pick that word, they will say that word is sarcastic. That means Christ has no moral. But you that want to expose, you must make sure you have a good understanding. When Christ was saying that word, you must know that during the time of Christ, that word is palatable. That is, it is permissible. It is a good word. You can refer to your mother as mother, that is mete in Greek. Once you pick that, wow, you understand. Many people will always say good night. So when you understand all those things in Greek, you say, okay, that is how they use that word then. But now it is no more in vogue. That is why we see it as a wrong word. But in the real context, it is not wrong. People will understand. Many people don't know before, but you that you are exposing, you are telling us what actually happened. That is the work of a teacher that is exposing. And if it is a book too, when the writer is comparing two thoughts together, you must look beyond that thought and tell us what is probably the reasoning of that writer. Why is he talking like that? When somebody is just shouting, Your own mind should not be on that shout. Your own mind should be what prompts that person to shout. That's the person that is exposing. You will understand language, understand customs, understand tradition, travel, gain experience, have knowledge. That's what expository sermon entails. But now, as a beginner, let's discuss the sermon outline of an expository sermon. It is also divided into these three parts, but importantly, it includes application. Application. It is important in an expository sermon. You must apply. Now, you want to prepare an expository sermon, your head also always come from a text. There's always a particular text for your expository sermon. Though that text may not be brought out like a textual sermon, you are just going to formulate it. It may not be a particular word that that person is saying, but from a particular text, you are going to formulate the topic. Like, let's say Luke chapter 15, starting from verse 11, the story of a prodigal son. Verse 13, that's where I want to pick a particular title from it. Verse 13, I will said, trading in a distant land of rioters. If you check that text, you will know that it relates to it. See the text. I will now bring out trading in a distant land of rioters. That will be my title. But how do you start? You start from the edge. Another thing is an expository sermon is just an excerpt. When you are not telling the story in full, you just want to pick a particular point. You must start from the main title, that is the theme of that person's life or that book or of that sermon. There must be a theme, general theme. That book of Luke I'm talking about, if I want to write an expository sermon on that chapter 15, I will start with writing out that particular theme. Luke chapter 15. That is the first thing. Now, I will now come to the edge. To the edge, the first thing I'm going to write will be my words, my topic. You know, if it is a textual sermon, we said the edge, the topic is not the first thing to write. But now, here in an expository sermon, you must first write the topic, though it is in form of clause. Now, the topic. Trading in a distant land of rioters. Now, I will now include my text. My text is Luke 15, starting from 11 to wait forward. Now, you now say the thesis, so-called thesis. That is, this particular title, where did I bring it from? Thesis. I will now quote that particular text, that perspective will be here, and in the quote, everything in that passage, I must quote it. Now, from that, I will now go to purpose. I believe you can see. Then, purpose. Why did I think that point, that particular passage? Why did I want to teach it? What is my reasoning? Why did I bring it? I must state it. And you must also state it. Another thing, after that, we now go to the body. The body, you are not going to put a relative pronoun or anything, nothing like that. Under the body, you are going to expose particularly everything that happened. Let me pick my Bible here. Now, Luke chapter 15. We are starting from verse 11. You are now going to say verse 11. What does verse 11 say? A particular point. You are going to bring out the point from it. A certain man with two sons. A certain man with two sons. Verse 12. Collection of inheritance. Verse 13, how or to 14, how the younger spend his inheritance. Now, verse 15, then he went and joined himself to a citizen of the country. Okay, verse 13 to 14 will be where, not how, where. From 15 will be, you see, 15 to 16, how he spent his inheritance. Verse 16, what later happens to him. Now, verse 17, how did he become himself? Verse 18, what was his later suggestion? Verse 20, what happens to him when he got home? Verse 21, because the father's behavior or reaction to his child coming back home. Verse 22 to 23, what the father did. Now, verse 24 and 25, the reaction of the older brother. Now, the 26 to 32, celebration of his welcome back home. I believe you can see. And verse 30, you can pick verse 30 as a conclusion of the story. That's how to do the body. Now, we now comes to the application. This is where the real story is. Everything you said here, what actually happened, you will pick them one after. You know, here, if you are presenting, you are picking them one after the other. That is, when you start, verse 11 says, and he said, a certain man had two sons. A certain man. Who is that man? That's how you start. You will explain that who that man is. Who is the first son? Who is the second son? You must understand. That story, Jesus didn't tell it like a literal story. You must know that it's like it is a symbol, it is a parable. And you must understand, he's talking particularly about some people. The first child and the second child are the people listening to him. Not just an imaginary character. They are the people listening to him that are around him. That's what is meant by expository. But Jesus didn't tell it in that story. But you that want to expose, you must tell us what actually happened. The first son that Jesus didn't mention his name is part of those people. It represents the collective people, that is the Jews in general, that are murmuring, that were asking him why was he dining with sinners. Those are the child that did not collect his inheritance. The one that collected his inheritance represents the sinners he was dining with. When they were asking him why he was dining with the sinners, that is the last part of the stories. That the father was happy when the sinner comes to him, when the second son that collected his inheritance comes to himself. That is, this one he was dining with, they were lost, and now they are back home. He's now happy to be with them. That is the meaning of that story. Not that Jesus was just talking about something that is far. Also, what does that land, distant land, represent? It represents this land of sense, this world of sense. This is all about sermon outline or skeleton. But if you are just watching, make sure you go down to the description. You will find the links to the other videos we have prepared. Also, if you find it beneficial, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also share with others so that they can also benefit. Also, don't forget to turn on your notification so that whenever I post any video, you will be notified immediately. Thank you so much for watching. May God